Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports. And today we're going to be doing something a bit different. We're going to be talking about my 5 ways to save rugby. And not to say that rugby has to have saving, but we're talking about trying to grow the game to a different level and take a big step. And I think that in some ways rugby is very far ahead, and in some ways I feel they are criminally far behind the rest of the sporting codes in the world. And I personally think there are some very simple ways that we can really start taking bigger steps to try and make rugby the global sort of sport that we really want it to be. And you look at viewership, for example, and still sort of sits behind, for me, in popularity, and even online and the likes of that, behind football, obviously, cricket, as well as probably these days Formula One to a certain extent as well. And you know, we want to try and make it as big as possible. And I think the main thing we want to try and do is make it as accessible as possible. Because people are not rugby fans a lot of the time. They're like Springbok fans, for example. When Springboks play, everyone watches. When there's URC, very good audiences and record-breaking audiences. But I feel there could be simple ways that you can just completely catapult rugby to a completely different level. And very importantly, this is without changing the laws. This is not me asking to scrap scrums and to speed up this. This is not actually asking me to change the product itself, although obviously there needs to be lots of things that need to change there. For me, it's about changing the way rugby operates and the way we market rugby and the way we cover rugby and the way we talk about rugby and looking at what works in other sports and why we then need to maybe sort of implement certain things, not all of them, but certain things to try and grow the game. I'm always very interested to know what you think down in the comments below. Before we do that, please do smash like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. My number one change, well, let's go into it, shall we? We're going to put it over here. My first change I'm going to have is rugby transfer windows. We are so far behind when it comes to the way that players move between teams and the likes of that when it comes to rugby. You know, you look at global leagues and football's got a transfer window, two transfer windows. You know, a summer inverted commas in the northern hemisphere, but a transfer window sort of June through to sort of end of August, as well as that month in sort of January. If you look at cricket, for example, a lot of these tournaments have got drafts and player auctions, really. Auctions where players get bought, for example. You look at America, they've got the whole draft system. Rugby, it's the most willy-nilly, oh, by the way, this is actually signed for next season. And you go, oh, that's really interesting for like a day, and then you're done. And then you're like, oh, that's cool. And, you know, there's no hype around transfers in the same breath that there are, for example, when somebody goes for super really big money in the IPL auction and the likes of that. I would love to see a rugby transfer window. I'd love to see a 2 month period or a month period where, you know, teams are battling out for signatures, where we're seeing players being, you know, part of a bidding war, and we're seeing transfer fees and the likes of that. You know, I think that is something I'd really like to see. Even, you know, when players do get bought in inverted commas, we don't hear about transfer fees. We don't hear about how the negotiations went, the likes of that. It's very hush hush, and I think it takes a lot of the hype out of it. I'd love to see a rugby transfer window. And that ties into my number two. Disclose financials. This irks me, and maybe the reason that this irks me so much is yesterday, for example, I put a video out discussing the Springbok match fees, and we talked about a table that came out that sort of talked about what the sevens players, you know, minimum retainer is, as well as, you know, what the URC minimum salaries are, and we didn't really go into specifics. We weren't talking about like individuals' pay slips, but there were so many people who were like, why does this matter? We don't want to, you know, we shouldn't be talking about personal stuff, and that for me, you know, shows an attitude where I think we need to change. Sport is driven by money. It is. All sport is driven by money. Let's go through some of the biggest sports in the world. Football. We know exactly what the transfer window and what transfer fees are. We know what all the players are earning. We know what the managers are earning. We know how much people are paying. Clubs are paying when they sack managers. We know how much clubs are paying on stadiums. We know how much sponsorships are due. You know, we talk about season tickets. Financials is such a core part of the footballing fandom that comes with the game. Let's look at cricket. IPL auctions. You know, how much are players going for? How much are teams spending on squads and the likes of that? You know, you go look at golf, and the winnings are listed. You know, you can actually go into the PGA website right now and look at every single individual player's earnings. That's how they actually determine order of merits. You know, that's how they determine who's the best across the season. It's how much money they've won. You look at Formula One; it's all about how much the team's spending. You know, we all know what the drivers are earning. We all know how much the damages are. You look at the NBA and the NFL and the likes of that, and we kind of see what these sort of contracts are. it really irks me that there's such a hush hush about the rugby financials because it's interesting, and we want to kind of be part of it. We want to know. And I'm not saying we have to now go disclose every single person's personal salary, but we're in the dark, and that's the problem is that we sit there, we don't know what the situations are. We don't know why the Sharks got so much money versus the Lions do. We just know the Sharks do have money and the Lions don't, for example. We don't know why. What are the issues? Are the Lions running at a loss? Are the Sharks running at a profit, for example? How much are the transfer fees? Where's that money being invested? Where's the money going where? It's so interesting when you look at, for example, the Manchester United situation right now, and you can break down the fact that this is why they're losing money. This is the cuts that they're having to make. And they have to disclose their financials. They're a listed company. They disclose all their financials, and you can see the profits and the losses. And we only get to really see SA Rugby's financials, and we just try and remove some of the mystification about it because it allows fans to understand why things are the way they are. We look at ticket price, and we've got no idea why the ticket price is that. What is the broadcasting revenue these teams are getting? I'd really like to us be able to, I'm not saying everything, I'm not saying completely open the accounts, but let's talk about it. Let's talk about it because it also makes us understand when we are buying jerseys, when we're buying tickets, when we are investing in the game. Where's that money going? Why do we have to invest? What is the investment sort of in between the teams? I think that would drive a lot of interest into the sport as well. Number 3 is more documentaries. We need more stories, I think, is probably not my big thing yet. Rugby at the moment is quite tribal in a way that we kind of support your home nation and then you kind of support your local team, which is very similar to a lot of other sporting codes. Where rugby is different is that international rugby is very much the pinnacle of the game, where I think a lot of sports is far more franchised and club-based. You look at the Premier League or football in general, it's all very club-based. You look at the States, and most of their sports are very much state-based, various on their teams. Cricket is obviously very franchised, if you look at IPL and the likes of that. But the main thing, I think, is that there are not enough stories being told. The amount of documentaries you can watch on football players, football clubs, football managers, football agents, Chasing the Sun showed you how to do a proper documentary, but we need far more of that. We need to start creating stories. One of the reasons that everybody's so endeared to Marcus Pimpy is his story. He's got his own documentary. We need more of that. We need to start creating more stories where they create an emotional attachment to teams, to players, to coaches, to unions, and also makes us understand more about the system. How do the Lions work, for example? How do the Sharks work? How does things work in a national camp? If you've watched All or Nothing, All Blacks, that was fascinating. They tried to do it, but unfortunately badly, with the Six Nations, and I think that was kind of the issue, is that it wasn't done particularly well. But fair play, the concept needs to be there. Now we need to do that a bit more, and I think the teams themselves need to take more ownership over telling the stories. We need to tell our rugby stories better. So when it comes to the World Cup, for example, there's a reason we want to watch a Fiji, and we can kind of understand the difficulties they go through. Watch the rise of Afghanistan cricket. At the moment, it's very controversial, given the women's cricket and the whole situation. But when you watch the fact that if you go back 20 years ago, they basically didn't have a cricket team, and now they're one of the top 8 sides in the world. It's really interesting. So we need more of that. We need more rugby telling stories and ways to access behind the scenes stuff. Again, it's been a big sort of curtain, and we're starting to break it down. And I think more content creators are really sort of diving into the behind the scenes stuff. But we need to see a lot more of that. The next is number 4 is on-screen broadcasting graphics. I feel we could really. I mean, you watch the NFL. It's actually incredible what they do. And you look at the graphics, and they're showing you the meters gained and where the lines are and your hotspots. Even in, for example, football. Football, I think could also. Yeah, but you're seeing a lot of the different stats and representations. I would love to see more information being conveyed. From a rugby point of view, during the game, because we've got the technology, we really do. And there's the thing with rugby is very stop-start. There are plenty of opportunities to be able to overlay different graphics and things like heat maps. Where are the teams playing, for example? Where are the set pieces taking place? Where are majority of the tackles being made? Where are they running? From a channel's point of view, are they going out wide or are they going into the center? I think there's a lot more information that we could start to actually give the viewer, which kind of gives them better insight than what we're currently doing. It's very cool seeing possession and territory, but what does territory mean? Territory means you're in either one of the halves. Where are you in the field itself? And so you look at a player heat maps, for example, in football. That's always a very interesting stat. Cricket's phenomenal, a very different game, but you've now got visualizations of fielding and what the player. I mean, imagine you could have a visualization of what the fly half is looking at the scrum time. That would be phenomenal. Imagine you can basically say at a break, for example, as the scrum's being set and they say reset, you can go and see what, I don't know, Finn Russell's looking in front of him. And those sort of point of views. It's so cool. And the technology exists. We just need to try to find a way to implement it. Last but not least, and this is not a dig at anyone besides Matt Williams, better pundits. We've got to improve the people that are tasked with communicating how the game works to an audience. There are some phenomenal pundits out there. I'm not going to go sit there and start naming pundits who are poor and stuff like that, but we've got to find better voices for the game. There are some brilliant ones. As I said, I think certain documentaries, certain podcasts are doing really, really well. Jim Hamilton's doing a really good one. Shimanga and John DeVilliers and Scott Berger, they're doing some really good work. Scott Berger is a brilliant pundit, absolutely brilliant. Can understand the game, reads the game so quickly, understands also the off-field stuff, and we need to try and find people that are a bit more in tune with the audience, not just finding ancient people who are very miserable about their time, and I just don't think they can really commit. And I think my big gripe at the moment is football and cricket are starting to understand the value of non-ex-professionals or not, and more bigger names. You've got some really, really good presenters and even analysts and the likes of that who are out there who understand the game far more than an old coach does, because they actually watch all the games. They're analyzing it. They're doing the research. They're part of it. They're part of the industry. And we've got some phenomenal sports broadcasters. Motsutisha Mohono, she's one of the absolute goats. And you look at how good she is, and then you look at some of the really poor, ex-pros and the likes of that. We've got to try and find a way of bringing more content creators and more expert opinions, more than just an ex-player. What is going on in camps? People, how does, for example, I want to be able to sit there on a Saturday afternoon, watching the Lions, and afterwards, I don't just want to be for the somebody to say, they're a young team and they're doing well. No. Go through the problems. What's going on at the Lions? Why are there issues? And it's not just they're losing players. Go and sit there, say, unfortunately, with their financial situation, they have to contract younger players to try and bring them through. We need more valuable insights, rather than just a very bland, superficial take of what you've just watched, because unfortunately, a lot of the pundits just don't do their research. And again, there are some brilliant shows, and there's some brilliant pundits out there that do some really, really good work. But there's also some really poor ones, and we've just got to try and lift the general standard, I think, so that because we need to understand that your pundits and your people, your content, your creators, your personalities, that's how you grow the game. At the end of the day, what's played out in front of you is played out in front of you. But that's 18 minutes a week. What's happening for the other 5-6 days, especially rugby, which there's no midweek games. So everything happens between Saturday to Sunday. Monday to Friday, or Friday night to Sunday. Monday to Friday up until 5 o'clock. No rugby is happening. And so where are we now finding ways to generate interest in what's going to happen this weekend? And that's looking at the game as a whole broader picture. So those are kind of my 5 things. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below, and what you think and what you'd like to see change. But that's just my opinion. Thought I'd throw it out there and see if anybody else agrees with any else ideas. Maybe start a bit of a think tank, and then we'll go to SC Rugby and say, right, this is how we're going to save you guys. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.